family. Anyway, here we are streaming live on YouTube, and I'm going to turn this mic over to you, Audsie. This mic is all yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you, Rev Wayne, for the opportunity to just really get into your teachings. I love it. Yeah, I just get so much out of it, and I'm just happy to be a part of this community. So yeah, I'm going to read today from A Course in Mysticism and Miracles. Begin your spiritual adventure. And happy to see everybody in the room. Hi, Cindy, you're here. And Karen and Zalma and Dove and Wayne and Regis. Nice to see you here. If anybody has anything to comment on, please, I welcome all comments. So we're going into the section called Seeing is Believing. And if you can put up with my pronunciation of names and places, then we'll be okay. 17th century German mystic Jacob Boehm experienced a religious epiphany when a ray of sunlight reflecting in a pewter dish catapulted him into an ecstatic vision of God. Wow, so a ray of sunlight catapulted him into this ecstatic vision of God, and he wrote, "If men would as fervently seek after love and righteousness as they do after opinions, there would be no strife on earth, and we should be as children of one Father, and should need no law or ordinance." Yeah, wow. We wouldn't need a policing entity. We wouldn't need, counselors. We would just be able to exist with one another if we put first love and righteousness rather than being right and having opinions. Likes and dislikes are the ways we make things up. They are the ways in which we cement the world together. All opinions are ego-invested. Thoreau says, "We must look a long time before we can see. We can only see when, in our seeing, we do not add anything to the picture." Look at a cup, for example, the Course instructs us. Do you see a cup? Or are you merely reviewing your past experiences of picking up a cup, being thirsty, drinking from a cup, feeling the rim of the cup against your lips, having breakfast, and so on? Are not your aesthetic reactions to the cup, too, based on past experiences? How else would you know whether or not this kind of cup will break if you drop it? What do you know about this cup except what you have learned in the past? You would have no idea that this cup is, except for your past learning. Do you then really see it? And that's from the workbook, part 1, paragraph 7. To have mystical awareness, something must happen first. First, we have to stop thinking. We have his thoughts were the stardust, the ray of light revealed. Ooh, that's beautiful. To have mystical awareness, something must happen first. First, we have to stop thinking. 20th century English mystic Douglas Harding described this experience in his book on having no head, Zen and the Rediscovery of the Obvious. What happened was something absurdly simple and unspectacular. I stopped thinking. A peculiar quiet, an odd kind of an alert limpness or numbness came over me. Reason and imagination and all mental chatter died down. For once, words really failed me. Past and future dropped away. I forgot who and what I was, my name, manhood, animalhood, all that could be called mine. I was as if I had been born that instant, brand new, mindless, innocent of all memories. There existed only the now, that present moment, and what was clearly given in it. To look was enough. Wow, that's from Douglas Harding. And I do have experience with the quieter mind. Mine came about from magic at first, taking medication for this mind. I guess a neurodivergent mind compared to maybe others. And excuse me, it really has quieted things down for me, that I am able to hear a little more clearer, singular things rather than just this mismatch of so many things going on. So I'm grateful for that, and I look forward to just seeing with Christ's vision, all the judgment falling away. And that starts with me in this mind. And as I see and repurpose, ask for repurposing of these thoughts, automatically the world shifts. It's just been my experience. People change right before my eyes, their opinion, they quiet down, they soften. It all starts in this mind, the individual's thought mind, the thought of an individual's mind is what I mean to say, I think. Racing thoughts, yes, that's another thing, Cindy, that just they just come as a barrage, and it can be very difficult to infiltrate that. I know there was one time my child called, they were babysitting for somebody new, and I guess the kids were just going kind of crazy. They wouldn't go to bed, and he was really upset when he called me. Mike wasn't here, so I had to actually physically go over there, and I knew I was just in this fear state. So I took a deep breath and I asked for help. And I guess kind of maybe like this, an alert numbness, maybe not really a numbness, but just sort of this detachment came over me, where I was just being led, driving there, going in there, and taking control in a very caring way, so that as not to upset any of the kids in the house. And I know that wasn't me being this Audrey character. I knew it wasn't me after the fact, because I was so calm, and I asked for help. I knew I was being helped. So that stands out for me clearly, that time that I did that. And I'm so grateful that I was able in that moment to remember to say, help me out here, help me out here. So we continue. The ordinary mind, busily engaged as it is with thoughts, opinions, and judgments, simply cannot see anything but the mind's own projections. But, as William Blake pointed out, if the door of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. To be truly aware, we must stop all ego machinations and maneuvering. Blindness is based on prejudice and fear. Spirit sees through eyes of love. free of contamination. As Aldous Huxley expressed it, if you could get out of your not self's light, you could be illumined. If you could stop anxiously cogitating, you could give yourself a chance to be cogitated. The Course tells us that when we attempt to interpret error, we give it power. Having done this, it says, you will overlook truth. That's from the text, chapter 12. And I just need to take a sip of water. The next section is from Workbook Part 1, Lesson 189. Be still. Simply do this. Be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is. All concepts you have learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either true or false, or good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with holy, empty hands unto your God. How do you feel about that? Forget the world, forget this course, and come with holy, empty hands unto your God. Just drink that in. Drink that in. Imagine what it would be like if we loved everything our eyes fell upon. Instead, we judge things almost instantly. To see what is true is to be deceived no longer by the ego. American-born spiritual teacher Gangaji, dedicated to sharing the mystical path through direct self-inquiry, asks us to stop all your doing, stop all your beliefs, all your searching, all your excuses, and see for yourself what already is always here. Don't move. Be still. The purpose of meditation is to be free of the thoughts, the illusions we normally take to be ourselves. The idea is to quiet the mind and disconnect from the ego, or at least to slow the pace of internal chatter. If we're lucky and diligent, we will be able to stop the self-talk. If we can disengage from the constant inner babble and projection of beliefs and prejudices, then we can really begin to see. And what are we going to see? We're going to see with love. We're going to see without that judgment. And yes, Cindy, that was an interesting word, cognating. I think it's like cognitive thinking, cognitive, just being your understanding. I think that's what it means. I'm not 100% sure. Various experiences can bring on a dropping or temporary stopping of the inner chatter of the mind and provide an opportunity for pure seeing. Meditation, which we will look at more closely in chapter 12, is one of them. But God is often found in becoming aware of, or in seeing, the smallest of things. 14th century English nun Julian of Norwich saw God and the whole of the universe while looking at an acorn. She writes, "In this little thing, I saw three properties. The first is that God made it. The second is that God loveth it. The third, that God keepeth it." Perhaps the best remembered verse of William Blake is this: "To see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour." We are sometimes shaken out of the busyness of the ego mind by life events like crash and burn scenarios of despair, a divorce or bankruptcy, the loss of a loved one, or the prospect of our own death. Mystical experiences like these can also come to us in solitary moments, like running, skiing, skating, bicycling, listening to music, creative work, and focused relaxation. The following is from the Kenya Upanishad, which scholars believe was composed around the middle of the first millennium BCE. And here we go. "What cannot be spoken with words, but that whereby words are spoken, know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be thought with the mind, but that whereby the mind can think, know that alone to be Brahma, the spirit, and not what the people here adore. What cannot be seen with the eye, but that whereby the eye can see, know that alone to be Brahma, Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be heard with the ear, but that whereby the ear can hear, know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be indrawn with breath, but that whereby breath is indrawn, know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore." And that brings us to the end of chapter 9. Just wondering if anybody has any comments or anything they want to share, or if I should go on to this chapter, The Miracle of Surrender is what it's called.
I just wanted to say that what you just were reading was amazing. That's a whole discussion of the reality of our world and the reality of our connection, our universe is, I mean, some of those quotes from some of those saints and philosophers were, each one of them was astounding. And I'm just sitting here thinking, how is it we study this course, we learn these truths, we come to understand the reality of what is happening here, and yet we still continue in the same old patterns with the same old fears and the same old hopes and the same old dreams, and it's like we don't recognize this is really happening. This is the reality of what is not the world that we see around us, and the being that we think we are and the beings that we think we're seeing is it really, exactly as Cindy said, they embody God, and that God is in everything that we see. Why do we act like, that's just okay, another day, another, if we should be rejoicing, which I know you are and I am as well, but B, we should be living as if this were the truth, and that living as if the world was one, the world is saved, that we are, there is nothing to fear. And so, I love this. That just blows me away. I'm going to go back and listen to that again. I don't even have this book. I think I'll order this book just because it's John is he he is a mystic. He is absolutely a mystic, and helping us to see, this is what it amazes me. We know this and we hear this over and over and over, and yet still fall into the same fear. Like, what happened? What happened? I know this is a dream. Why am I still believing that I'm here? Why am I still, you can listen to a lot of teachers, with, like say, well, we're not really here. We're not really here. Well, why am I experiencing this then? If I'm not really here, why am I experiencing this?
You know
Anyway,
what I think is because we don't, there's that gap that I continue to try to fill myself instead of, that's what it says, to let God take the last step. And I think I'm not allowing God to take that last step, or the trust of giving over my will to God. I'm not doing that. I'm still thinking I have to do this and do that in all kinds of different. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh no, that was perfect. And I mean, this is it. I mean, the whole point being, we are here in this moment in time because we chose to be here at this moment in time to do some real specific thing. And I'm just grateful for everyone that comes here and says, how do I do it? What can I do? Anyway, I'll turn the mic back to you, Audsie, for more reading or discussion.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Lynn. I agree. Like, what beautiful quotes. And Cindy says, yeah, I'm in awe when I read of saints. Exactly. I love the acorn. In this little thing, this little acorn, I saw three properties. The first is that God made it. The second is that God loveth it. The third, that God keepeth it. Isn't that beautiful? And yeah, I'm just elated with the way that John puts his book together. It's very easy to understand, and then when he goes into the course, it brings about a deeper meaning for me. I've found that there have been so many ahas again, like every day there's just, wow, I can't believe it. I can't believe that everything can be repurposed by God if I allow it to be. Everything. That means something I even thought to be negative. The other day, I was talking about how I was people pleasing all the time in my past life. And then a mentor had brought up to me that even people pleasing can be, I'm just going to mute you a minute here, Cindy, because there's some feedback, but even people pleasing can be repurposed. And I was like, right. Because when I go out into the world, I want to be a light, and I love to speak to people I don't know, or in the stores, like just having a conversation, whatever comes to the lips, I just allow it to be said, and it elicits a response from the other, and it's just this loving thing. And I'm like, oh, well, that's sort of people pleasing, that I want to highlight other people, and if I want to put a smile on their face. And then if I take that even further and I go out and I don't feel that I want to interact, I'm feeling withdrawn and a wall upon my face, I can think and I can remember the people pleasing, and I can use it to say, hey, Audrey, put that smile on your face, because other people will be affected. in the dream. The other people are me. And guess what? The smile's on my face. I've just repurposed people pleasing for myself. I love that. I loved that lesson yesterday or the day before or whatever it was. I just am like, wow, everything can be repurposed. Like before I started the program this morning, miracles everywhere. The brain was like, this is not a good draft. Like, why are you doing this? You suck. You didn't finish it. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, not this again. And Rev Wayne started his music and whatnot, and it all disappeared. There was the smile again. So I'm grateful for all that can be repurposed. And I love what Cindy wrote in the chat. I think saints actually fall in love with God. I think they actually have a romance in their heart. That's beautiful, Cindy. And did you want to share? I know I muted you there, but I just am going to ask you to unmute because you might have wanted to share there. And I had muted you. I hope I didn't wreck it, but just unmute if you wanted to. There you go.
No, I didn't want to say anything. I'm just going to unmute myself.
Okay, thanks, Cindy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cindy, so much. Okay, well, we still have 3 minutes. I'm thinking I want to start this next chapter because the miracle of surrender, right under it is a quote from the text, chapter 1, and it says,
Take as long as you want, Audsie.
oh, great. Thank you, Lynn. It says, when you have become willing to hide nothing, hear me here. When you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. To hide nothing. You will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. What do you think we hide? What do you think we hide the most? What do you hide? I think sometimes I hide from thinking I can do something, thinking that I can even do something and knowing that I'm not really doing it. I think I hide from that. I hide because it scares the one that thinks it's a person, which is funny because that one isn't real. But I really do feel that that's hidden sometimes in me. It's covered up anyway, maybe just a blanket over top of it, and I can see the shape under it. Anybody else have anything they're feeling they want to share about what they hide or what they think they hide or what maybe the biggest hidden thing is?
Let me turn this off. Yeah, both sides of the spectrum. I think what you're saying is hiding that you're capable. I think I hide that I'm much more capable than I present myself as. And then on the other side, I try to hide my shame, my unworthiness. So it's funny. It's an interesting, combination of the things that I try to hide because they're opposite. That unworthiness, that shame that I'm not good enough, and then on the other side, knowing that I am capable, but I don't step forward and follow through. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, totally, Cindy, because it's the paradox, right? It's like we're hiding at both ends of the 180 here. And that's just what this world is. It's complete duality. It's always like Rev Wayne was even saying, you know, up, down, left, right, big, small, fat, little, evil, saint, you know, it's the whole thing. It's just brilliantly devised. Well, how could it not be brilliant? I mean, it was created from God in the sense of miscreated through us, but when God says, when the saint says that God created the acorn, I mean, that's part of this world we've made up. So obviously God is in everything. And I think that was part of where I got a bit confused at the start, was that God wasn't in the opposites. But God is in the opposites. It's just that that opposite is also love in the Christ vision, which is where my vision is covered up. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel clearer. And I'm here only teaching myself. So I guess I feel good about it. And hopefully you do too. I'm going to read this next paragraph here of chapter 10. Holy instants are clear windows into the divine. Although most profound, however, they are still instants. They often do not last. The following story tells of a mystical awakening experienced by a young Chinese girl. What makes this story unique is that this experience did have a lasting transformative effect. The wisdom that percolates forth from Zeho's experience is amazing. It's hard to believe that she was only 19 when she wrote this description and only 14 when the experience occurred. And thank you, Cindy, for saying that you understood me. Zeo's experience was truly life-transforming, and her challenge since has been to integrate its lessons into her everyday life. First, I give you the story in Zeo's own words. Then we will look at it more closely. I know it's 12:03, but I'm going to read Zeo's story. And then maybe next week we'll go into it more deeply. My story started as far back as I can remember. I had difficulties identifying with this body since I was a child. Eating, sleeping, and walking were very hard to understand for me. It took me a long time to adjust myself to this world, to live like a human being. I was unhappy with my life. I saw everything distorted, ugly, and meaningless. I knew there was something missing and that I must find it. My home had a rich library which contained many philosophical and Buddhist books. These texts provided me the chance to read and explore. I filled dozens of notebooks, analyzing every thought to see what was inside. When I dug into any of them, they disappeared, became unreal, were empty. At the age of 14, after 7 years of intensive reading and reflection to find the answers and failing, I decided to commit suicide. I can understand this because I don't even remember how old I was, but I was close to this age where I decided, yeah, I didn't want to live in this world anymore either because I couldn't understand it. Something was wrong with it. I said to myself, since there is no meaning to life or to the world, then there is no difference between being alive or dead. Then suddenly the whole world disappeared. Myself disappeared. I felt I had melted into God, the supreme good, the most beautiful, peaceful, joyful state I never imagined. I realized that I had been looking for answers in the material world, looking for the answers in a wrong place. Yeah, same as me. I was putting blocks between heaven and me. This is the answer I had always been looking for. This was the supreme good. Over the next 3 days, I started seeing everything as the absolute presence of God. Even dung. Dung is poop. Even dung. Even people arguing and hurting each other. And that's so awesome because when I go out and pick up my dog poop, to me, they're little hunks of diamonds. I do that. I'm like, I'm just picking up the diamonds from my pup. I began to see everything turned into God's shining presence. 3 days later, I came back to Earth. My human body could not stay in that rarefied state for a long time. It burns up everything, including the body, but the undisturbed peace stays. At first, I was not willing to use the word enlightenment to describe what I had experienced. For a long time, I was not willing to say who is enlightened or not. Most people do not believe that a young person can have an awakening experience. When I tried to relate my own experience, they turned away or said that I was arrogant to say such a thing. But I knew what I had experienced was eternal oneness, no matter what others wanted to call it. In the end, words are just words. The only test comes from your own heart. Immediately after my awakening experience, I wrote, I am God. I am who I am. I wrote the words spontaneously, shocking myself with my arrogance. But I could not help myself. 3 days later, I began writing nothingness completely, nothingness completely, again and again. It was as if I could not control my hands, as if something were leaking through me. I realized that God was the only thing I can never get rid of. Even when I am not aware of its presence, it is still here. God did not hide himself from me. I had been holding concepts which didn't allow me to experience God's presence. I realized that concepts are the ego's clothes. When all concepts die, the ego dies, and that is true, the true death, the death, which is even deeper than our body's death. That is why even the concept of God can be dangerous. That is the only thing that does not change. It is your truth. Let your heart be empty and humble to see God's presence. I can tell you a truth. God himself does not know his name is God. That is why you can call it anything you like. But all the experiences of God are absolutely the same. God itself is being experienced by itself. There is no God but God. I am speechless now. I see everything so perfect as the presence of God. I am speechless. I see everyone as already enlightened. I have nothing more to say or do. Enlightenment is a constant state, not an instant experience. The finite experience is just an encouragement that keeps us striving for it. To remain there, we must be constantly willing to surrender. Say this to God: I will what you will. The question you must ask is whether you are living out God absolutely right now, right here, without any compromise. After an awakening experience, you must bring this attitude to the world until you forgive all that is unforgiven. The Course says that the meaning of our earthly lives is removing the blocks we set to the awareness of love's presence. It is like peeling an onion one layer at a time. When you peel the final layer, it disappears. Every time you peel another layer through forgiveness, it is a holy instant that lifts you closer to God. Keep peeling until you see God's face. And that was Zaho's story. And next week we can look at that story a little more closely. I really, really enjoyed this today. And I just hope everybody has an awesome upcoming weekend, and that everything that you experience that isn't peace, that can be repurposed for you in the mind of God, where we all exist. Thank you, my friends. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Audsie, and thank you everyone for joining us here today on ACIM Gather for A Course in Miracles. I so appreciate all of you, and what a wonderful story that was. I'm so glad you read it, Audsie. All righty.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Please,
Love you all.
Love you. Let's read this. Everyone.